Compared to the second conflict, France did better in the Great War, but it was actually close to a total disaster. Several times, collapse was avoided with the help of their allies, although French troops did most of the heavy lifting, losing millions in the process. Even in 1918, during the last German offensive, defeat seemed possible, but by then, the Entente was strong enough to launch a counterattack and overwhelm France's neighbor. In this episode, I will look at this period from a French perspective to see what was needed to achieve final victory. Even before the war, it was clear to most French leaders that Germany's stronger economy and much larger population posed a significant threat. Efforts to increase France's own population mostly failed, so the country needed reliable allies who would safeguard its position in Europe. Luckily for them, Germany's rapid development and increasingly aggressive stance threatened others as well, so by the early 20th century, both Russia and Britain stood behind France. When Germany declared war on the 3rd of August, 5 French armies were to defend the eastern border, relying on 22 military regions that were responsible for the mobilization of reservists. As per Plan 17, the army would attack Germany and take Alsace-Lorraine, the contested region that had been conquered by Germany in 1870. Under General Joseph Joffre's leadership, the first few weeks were disastrous for the French. Their forces were defeated in the Battle of the Frontiers. Belgium was invaded by Germany, so their troops, along with the British Expeditionary Force and the Belgians, had to retreat towards Paris. As the Germans executed the Schlieffen Plan, they defeated French forces in several encounters, so German Second Army's invasion could only be delayed. The capital was soon threatened, but the First Battle of the Marne was won by the French at the cost of 250,000 casualties. The race to the sea commenced as each side tried to outflank the other, but by November, a continuous front line was created from the Swiss border all the way to the English Channel. Trench warfare and the widespread use of machine guns made each attack extremely costly. The infantry suffered enormous losses. The front was not really static, but progress was minimal. Even if the first 2 enemy lines were taken, a counterattack soon regained these positions, so the 2 sides kept fighting for the same piece of land with mounting losses. No matter who won each individual battle, breakthrough was not achieved, which is why both sides looked for alternative means. One such tool was gas, which both sides had been using, but in April 1915, in the Second Battle of Ypres, a new German weapon, chlorine gas, was introduced, but their advance soon stalled. The rest of 1915 was mostly uneventful, as the Germans focused on the Eastern Front, but already hundreds of thousands had lost their lives on both sides, and France was feeling the pressure. President Raymond Poincaré was a strong supporter of the war, along with most of the population. However, the more industrial northeast was captured by the Germans, which devastated the coal and steel industries, while the masses of refugees frustrated French citizens, who also had to cope with the rationing of food items and other resources. Government propaganda bombarded civilians with constant messages regarding the necessity to win the war, but support waned as subsequent battles claimed the lives of millions of ordinary soldiers, while certain industrialists profited from the conflict. The war claimed more lives, as chief of the German General Staff, Erich von Falkenhayn, believed that the French army could be exhausted in a massive battle of attrition, after which France would ask for armistice. He decided that the city of Verdun and its nearby forts were the ideal target, as the French would do everything in order to retake them. The Battle of Verdun thus commenced in February 1916 and lasted until December of that year, when the Germans finally admitted that their plan failed. The resulting meat grinder cost the lives of more than 700,000 soldiers, with roughly equal losses on each side. It was an unprecedented show of artillery barrage, massive infantry charges, hand-to-hand combat, and general carnage. To divert German resources, up north, the British started the Battle of the Somme, which raged between June and November, with roughly 500,000 killed on each side. It also didn't result in significant territorial changes. The British advance reached a mere 12 kilometers. General Robert Nivelle, whose troops captured Fort Douaumont at Verdun, replaced Marshal Joffre and immediately proposed a new offensive, this time supported by creeping barrage and tanks, that would overwhelm the German defenses and end the war in 48 hours. The plan proved to be overly optimistic. When the Nivelle offensive started in April 1917, initial attacks were successful and some German defensive positions were taken, but further attempts were stopped, and the offensive ended as a costly failure with another 200,000 casualties. Since the outbreak of the war, more than 1 million French soldiers, roughly 5% of the male population, had been killed, and while the entry of the US into the war caused euphoria in France in April, just a month later, the strategic failure led to desertions and a refusal to fight. Nivelle was dismissed. He was succeeded by General Philippe Pétain, but the French army reached the breaking point, with almost half of their infantry divisions affected by mutiny. Some units refused to go to the front, but most soldiers did not harm their officers and also did not flee. Instead, they wanted better conditions, more time with the family, and more attention to the realities of war, so that their attacks would not be pointless. The crisis affected mainly the infantry, while the artillery and cavalry provided detachments to surround the mutinied units. In June, oppression followed with mass arrests and mass trials. 49 were executed, hundreds were sentenced to hard labor, but General Pétain and President Poincaré both tried to alleviate hardships and avoid a further deterioration of the situation. In the meantime, Russian units, upon hearing about the Tsar's abdication, also mutinied, but this was suppressed by loyal Russian forces, and about 10,000 of them were demobilized and transferred to labor battalions. On the home front, things were also bad. The economy was collapsing, food shortages led to widespread hunger, although starvation could be averted by fresh American shipments of grain, which arrived just in time. At the front, the British Army launched another offensive at Passchendaele, but the Third Battle of Ypres, which lasted from July to November, was highly controversial, as British Fifth Army was unable to advance in the mud, even after losing more than 300,000 men. When the last German offensive, the Kaiserschlacht, started in March 1918, 40 French divisions were sent to help out the British, who were hit first. 5 separate German attacks took place until July, when the offensive finally petered out and fresh American divisions put an end to further attempts. Germany achieved a Pyrrhic victory, but it lost almost 700,000 men, which it could not replace. On the other hand, the Entente lost 800,000, but more were coming in from the US and the British Empire. At that point, one final push was needed to force the Kaiser to admit defeat. In the summer, General Ferdinand Foch was appointed Supreme Commander of Allied forces. Under his leadership, Amiens was attacked first, then a general offensive was launched with 8 French armies, along with British and American divisions. They were still the most numerous of all the Allied troops, and during the attack, they took 140,000 prisoners, as the German army was even more exhausted and on the brink of collapse. Most of northern France was liberated, and in November, Germany asked for armistice. The war was now over, but after losing 4 million men, France remained a shell-shocked nation, with serious consequences in the interwar period. The French public wanted revenge for the war, the devastation, the humiliating defeats, and the overall cost of the conflict, which, in their eyes, was brought on by German ambition alone. In the 1919 peace treaty, excessive French demands were tempered by their allies, but the country regained Alsace-Lorraine, while the Rhineland was demilitarized, and Germany was humiliated to a point which, as Marshal Foch correctly predicted, made the next conflict unavoidable. I have a series dedicated to World War II, but in the next video I will talk about interwar France, and I would also like to cover more topics regarding World War I. Thank you for watching. See you next time.